Today is Monday. It is April 18th, 2022. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. We are joined on Mondays. I like to call it Action Mondays. We're joined by our team and our friends and our partners over at Act.tv, Sabrina Williams, who's the Chief Operating Officer, and Jocelyn Macurdy Keatts, who is the Washington, D.C. correspondent for Act.tv. Good morning to both of you. It is good to be joined by you this morning.
Good morning, Ben. So good to be here.
It is good to be here as well. It is tax day. I want to jump right into it because the sooner we get this conversation going, the more we can talk about what it is to be tax day in America, all around the country. People are preparing to get their last minute filings in, Sabrina, and those that haven't done it yet, they're trying to get in their last minute extension. Talk to us about tax day and Act TV.
Well, listen, I don't know about you all, but I paid my taxes. Ben, I know you paid yours. And Jocelyn, I know you paid yours. But you know who didn't pay taxes today? Wealthy people, most wealthy people, a lot of wealthy people, and many, many corporations. And even if they paid a little bit, they did not pay their fair share. And the point of a civilized society, right, is that we all come together, we pay our fair share, and we have these amazing common goods and services like education and research, airports, roads, you name it, parks, and all of these amazing things that allow our society to run, to make sure everyone has what they need to function and do well in society. We pay our fair share. It's time for corporations to pay their fair share. And ActTV has been on the front lines virtually every tax day, partnering with movement organizations to bring you the message that, hey, wealthy people, pay your fair share. Folks like Donald Trump several years ago, we had a big action demanding that he release his taxes before the election so that we could see whether he was, he want to lead this great country, but have you contributed financially to this great country? If you stay tuned on Act TV, on Facebook, on Twitter, later today at 12 p.m. Eastern, you will see our 2022 Tax Day Action. We have partnered with a number of movement coalition partners to bring you the latest, just infuriation by the average American on tax day. And that is, we are demanding that corporations pay their fair share. So you can see that action, that live stream right here in a few hours.
Absolutely. So that's later today at 12 noon Eastern. I'm always about this, Jocelyn. You and I, we talked about how we both, not just scream at the rich or yell things like eat the rich, but we're really serious about everyone carrying their fair share and doing their fair part. But why is it that we have so many people? It's like the richer you get, the more they define patriotism by how much you can keep from this government. And we seem to reward that all the way to the very top, to the richest people in the world.
I love that you say that because I'm kind of smiling watching this tax day coverage and getting nostalgia for all the fine organizers who have been able to bring to light the fact that Donald Trump is the rule. He's not the exception. I love what you just said, Ben. I mean, we've reached a situation where it's considered entrepreneurial to, use loopholes in the tax code to hoard millions and even billions in offshore accounts. That has become the norm in this country, which is ironic because the income tax, and I just learned this recently, was actually a Gilded Age response to monopoly power of the time. They introduced the income tax as a way to be like, okay, these incredibly wealthy people are taking advantage of the public sector. We need to introduce an income tax. And now that very income tax has resulted in working class and middle class families paying between 20 and 30% of their income, while people make billions of dollars in a day. Jeff Bezos recently made $19 billion in a day in February alone. That's ridiculous. And that's a policy failure. It's not, I mean, look, I'm not a big fan of Jeff Bezos, but it's not about him. It's about the fact that people like him on K Street in Washington have written a tax code which allow them to do that, while people like us pay a third of our income for endless war.
Right. Sabrina, Act TV has been covering this and facilitating this for years. What are some of the key action points that we want from the people? Like, what can we do? Because at the end of the day, every single month, I write a check to the IRS, and I know everyone looks at their paycheck every single month, like taxes are coming out. Some of us have to pay every single time we look up, yet there's a faction of this country that doesn't contribute to anything. They don't contribute to our roads. And you mentioned parks. I'm looking around at our country, and there's, I've had a chance to do a lot of traveling lately, and it's like our infrastructure dilapidated. Our parks are in ruins, but we have people flying off into space with our tax dollars.
Yeah, I think one of the best things you can do, I think it's going to be a multifaceted solution to get rich people and corporations to pay their taxes. But I think the most important thing you can do is vote. Vote for the representatives that are going to hold wealthy people and corporations responsible for paying taxes. That will eliminate the loopholes that allow them to hoard their money, to stash their money offshore, to not pay taxes on it, to let's elect politicians who are not bought by wealthy people, that are not tools of the elite class. So I think that's probably, to me, that is the most important first step. And again, at the end of the day, we have to hold these elected officials accountable. And right, money speaks volumes. If you're paying money, if you're spending a ton of money at Amazon, and I know sometimes we don't have other options, I get it. But if we're spending money with these organizations, with these companies, giving these money giving money to wealthy people who are essentially, right, hurting us, we are facilitating their oppression of us. So let's make sure every time we're spending a dollar that we're spending it to help ourselves, not to oppress ourselves.
Wow. Sabrina, could you say that again? We are facilitating. Say it one more time for me.
Let's make sure when we spend a dollar, we are spending it to help ourselves, not to oppress ourselves. Instead of maybe going to Walmart, to spending money with Amazon. And we're going to get to that in a minute about the Amazon workers unionizing. Let's not spend money at organizations like even Starbucks that has, where they're trying to crush unions, not pay taxes, maintain all of their elite, corporate privilege. And we essentially spend, as Jocelyn just mentioned, huge percentages of our income to maintain all of the common goods in society, right? While they continue to hoard the opportunities by the politicians and really, essentially make the economy only work for them. Instead of spending money at places like that, go spend your money at the local person who is just like you and me, who is paying their taxes and paying for all of the common goods in your community that go to help everyone.
When we talk about this particular topic, like we seriously can take an entire day to break down all the different ways, the different tax shelters, all the different resources, Jocelyn, that are at the disposal of the wealthy and the rich, and the tax code specifically designed to be cumbersome. We could even talk about TurboTax, like that'll be on my, conversation. But, the difficulty of filing and the simplicity of how this government could simply file the taxes for us. It's just one big game, it seems, Jocelyn, for them to get us chasing our tails. But then in the meantime, at the top, they're riding off into the sunset on their yachts.
I love that you say that, Ben, because, I may have mentioned this. The average American spends 30 hours compiling their tax return. 30 hours. That means a lot of us spend more than that, right? And that's done intentionally. It's like you're saying, people might not think about this, but these tax services actually do have a very powerful lobby in Washington because they make so much money off of confusing the American tax base. In a lot of other countries, it does not work like that. Quick plug for my evening show tonight. We're going to be talking to a journalist, T.R. Reed, who, he's a journalist for the Washington Post, and he wandered around the world figuring out just that. Why is the American tax code so confusing? It's because they want to waste your time. They want to waste your intellectual energy. They want to make you feel so overwhelmed that you can't advocate for yourself. And you can't ask yourself, wait a minute, why does that dude get a $7,500 write-off for a sports car, real figure? Meanwhile, I don't get a write-off for things like rent or things I need for my kids. If I'm a teacher, things I need for my students. Yet people like Jeff Bezos can claim pretty much everything they make as tax exempt because they are job creators, and they make it confusing so we don't have to figure that out and get angry. It's done completely intentionally.
This is a lot going on today. So we have at noon, we have Tax Day Action, Sabrina, and then later on tonight, Jocelyn, you have that episode. And that time, what time is that at?
Oh, it's 5:30 p.m.
5:30 p.m. Eastern. A lot going on tax day. Let's shift and we can come back. I want to talk about Solidarity Live. That's what's coming up next with Act TV. Talk to us, Sabrina. What do you have going on there?
I'm going to punt to Jocelyn on this, but what I do know is last week we had a really amazing Solidarity Live show. Jocelyn and Alex Lawson, some of our partners over at Social Security Works, interviewed, and I apologize if I get his name wrong, Shekhar Narasimhan, who is the co-founder of the Asian American Pacific Islander Victory Fund. And I know Jocelyn had a great conversation with him about the political experience of our AAPI brothers and sisters in this country, and how just really consolidating power in a lot of these, demographic groups.
Thank you, Alex.
So
Thank you,
important
Jocelyn.
and so powerful. Jocelyn, I'd love to understand a little bit more about what you all talked about.
So it was an incredibly inspiring conversation. So Shaker is a businessman, and him and some friends and colleagues were like, wait a minute, we're seeing these numbers. We're seeing AAPI people aren't really voting in a way that reflects who they are as Americans, who they are as citizens. And they were like, you know what? It's because people aren't talking to them. It's because the political elite, the consultant class, the major party are not looking at Asian American Pacific Islanders as the unique citizens they are, which, by the way, draw on several nations and cultures and several through lines of the American experience, and yet are combined into this monolithic two-dimensional thing. And that's becoming more and more important as we have a president that said just completely distasteful racial things like the China virus, blame the problems we were just talking about in the American tax code on China. Yeah, I'm sorry. China is not the person handing Jeff Bezos billions of dollars and tax hold. That's America. That's an American problem, right? And yes, of course, part of being large, powerful countries, we have to take seriously our foreign competitors, both in terms of our military interests, our economic interests, great. But to blame it on another nation, another economy, is a way of distracting us from the fact that the threats are domestic. The threats are here at home. And Shagar, just like, he's doing it. Like, he's like, okay, we're going to organize our people. And one thing he said a lot is he was like, look, to be a person of color in America, you don't need to be Asian American. Like, they work with Black groups, they work with Latinx groups, because the reality is we live in a country where the political baseline is if you're white, male, and privileged. And if you don't fit in that very narrow subset, you're considered other, you're considered a minority or marginalized. And that, we know that's nonsense, right? You look at numbers alone, that's not even half of the country, right? Like, half of us are women at least. And we need to be talking to each other and organizing each other and really leaning into those of us who maybe aren't partisan in nature, because we're the ones with the most common sense solutions. We're like, wait a minute, this isn't adding up to me. Am I missing something? And those are the people who frequently don't want to be involved, and those are the people that need to be involved. And it's inspiring to hear that happening.
I just want to say one thing that, and just piggyback off something Jocelyn said, and that is Shaker and a lot of other organizations in this country are really trying to coalesce and empower voters to make change for the good of all of society. Number one, you are not going to see those conversations on the nightly news, on any mainstream corporate sponsored media platform. But you know where you will see it? You'll see it on the Benjamin Dixon Show. You'll see it on Act TV. You'll see it on The Pursuit of Happiness with Jocelyn, Macurdy, Keatts. You'll see it on Solidarity Live. You will see it on all of our progressive media shows, because that's what we do. Our job, our goal, our mission is to promote progressive values, to empower American citizens. That's exactly what, let's face it, conservatives and the power elite are trying to crush in many, many states across this country right now. The power to vote, the right to vote, is being crushed. It's being minimized. It is being, literally, they have enacted and they're trying to enact laws that discourage people from voting, physically and psychologically. If you feel like, oh my God, I need all this stuff, I'm not even sure how to vote, they're trying to confuse the American voter. Right. So I love what Shankar talked about. It's what a lot of, voting rights and get out to vote organizations are talking about. We need voters to feel empowered so that they can make change in this country. But to hear those conversations, you have to have media outlets like Act TV and the Benjamin Dixon Show.
And this is a good place as any, Sabrina, to point everyone to how they can support Act TV, because this is quite honestly, anyone who knows me long enough to know that I don't give this kind of space to just anybody. And I definitely don't do it just for money, right? I partner with people I believe in, and I believe in Act TV. Tell them why they should go join. And better yet, I think they're seeing why they should go join. Tell them where they can go join.
Yeah, you can go to act.tv/join, sign up to be a member. If you have a few extra dollars, $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, become a patron, make a gift. Your money, 100% of it goes to supporting the work that me, that Jocelyn, that the rest of our team does to bring you progressive media, to bring you those conversations that you are not going to see on the nightly news. You are not going to hear, the elites talk about, except for our friends over at Patriotic Millionaires, like they did a few weeks ago. Rich people talking about how rich people need to change, so that our economy doesn't collapse and our society doesn't collapse. But if you go to act.tv/join, you can sign up to be a member. You will get regular newsletters and emails from, our very own Jocelyn Macurdy Keatts, who's on this show right now. She sends weekly updates about all of the amazing work we're doing with all of our amazing partners, because at the end of the day, we can't do it alone, but we will bring you the information. We will bring you, the links, the messages about where you need to sign up, what you need to actually do to change this country. I don't care whether it comes to economics, racial justice, the climate, voting, reproductive justice, reproductive rights. We cover all of it because it's all important and it's all tied together. So go to act.tv/join, become a member today. It's free to become a member and get Jocelyn's amazing newsletters. If you don't have time to watch, you can just read her newsletters. They're amazing. They're like great summaries.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Jocelyn, tell them more about the newsletter and also why they should join.
Well, it's so funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking about how part of like an obstacle to my maturity as an activist is not wanting to ask for money, right? And I think that's something that we on the left really struggle with sometimes, because look, if you're doing this, unless you're very foolish, you're not doing this for financial reasons, right? But then, I got more educated about how much money our opponents really have, right? How much money Fox News has, how much money this consultant class is making. And it's like, meanwhile, people like you, Ben, are just out here like, look, I just need to be able to like pay people and pay my bills and cover these stories that realistically are not going to get attention. I feel like ever since I started getting radicalized, I will read some story or talk to someone or hear on some issue. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is no one talking about this? They're not talking about it because it's not profitable. It's not profitable to talk about how bad it is for Black women, who are the most educated group in this country and still make 62 cents on the white man's dollar. It's not profitable to talk about the fact that healthcare in this country is so unconscionable that most bankruptcy is coming from cancer diagnosis. These stories are not getting covered because they cost a lot of white men a lot of money. And so meanwhile, we're everyone in this space, we just want to keep talking about this stuff. And we want to arm people with the information so they can go out there knowing what their rights are, knowing what they deserve, and knowing that they're being I was about to use some unpleasant language, taken advantage of by this current system. I caught it though. I'm
smiling ear to ear because you say that white man with some emphasis, I mean, and it's all going down at Act TV. Listen, folks, if you're a supporter of mine, you should be a supporter of Act TV, because where else can I go? And not only do I get to talk about rich white men, but Jocelyn Macurdy Keatts gets on here and says it with more emphasis than I do. Act.tv/join. It's free to join. Get on the mailing list today if you haven't done so already. I want to shift gears really quickly to one of the highlights of 2022. Honestly, for me, it's one of the highlights of the pandemic. I've been able to follow this story since Christian Smalls stood out there on behalf of the Amazon workers in the Staten Island warehouse And Christian Smalls subsequently lost his job. He started the unionizing efforts, and here we are. Act TV has been bringing some amazing coverage, and has been helping us bring coverage. Sabrina, talk to us about the Amazon union unionizing efforts and Act TV's coverage.
Right, absolutely, Ben. Let me just take half a step back. I am no history expert, but I did go to law school. And while I was in law school, I was privileged enough to take classes like labor law and employment law and understand the history of the labor movement in this country. If you ever wake up and you look in the mirror and you say, you know what, unions have outlived their useful purpose now. So what are unions for? I want you to go back and read the history of the formation of unions starting in about the early 1800s. People died for a 5-day work week. People died so that you could work 8 hours a day. People died so that you wouldn't have to breathe toxic fumes while you're at your jobs, so that your children who are 5 and 8 and 12 years old wouldn't have to work. Unions have changed the workplace. They have changed the power between workers and companies and the business owners for the better for you, and you are living the benefit. So this guy, Chris Smalls, starting a little over a year ago, complained, but 2 years ago or so at the start of the pandemic, kept bringing up issues about, the unsafe conditions they were in the Staten Island, New York warehouse. They didn't have PPE, yet they knew there was PPE because they were shipping it out all across the country, obviously to much needed places. But they were saying, listen, protect us as workers. And Amazon wouldn't do that. He got fired for raising his voice. He didn't go home and cry, or maybe he did for a few minutes, but you know what he did? He took action. He organized his fellow workers. They, fought and fought, and finally they got a union. But you know what Act TV did? Act TV covered his not too big, action last year, August 11, 2021, when mainstream media would not cover it, when mainstream media was working with Amazon and the elite and corporate class to crush unions, as they still are. But Act TV was there, and that's a risk for us. We can't get corporate, sponsorships. We don't want them, but corporate companies won't advertise with us. They don't want to do work with us because we call them out at every single chance we can get. They try to crush this union. We covered it. And finally, a week or two ago, that Amazon, location in Staten Island, New York, was able to unionize. That is a huge win for unions, for Amazon workers, and for every single freaking worker in this country. Right. Know it, believe it, and appreciate it. This one man and his friends did some great work. Never underestimate the determination of a small group of people. He did it.
Absolutely. Jocelyn, I know you've been covering this. This is, like I said, this has been one of the highlights. And I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of the reasons I support Act TV so much. Right. I love being around people and organizations that don't mind getting their hands dirty, knuckling up, and getting down in the trenches. If there's 5 people at an event, Act TV was there and covered it. And it starts to steamroll. It starts to steam pile. Like, you guys are really about that action. Talk to us about your experience covering this with Act TV.
Well, I love that you say that, Ben. Thank you, because that's exactly what it is, right? So early in my career doing this, someone once commented on one of my things like, oh, like, so what, y'all are talking to like 3 people outside some government building? Okay, look at this event. Is this some rally with hundreds of people? No. But I think what we need to talk about is how brave and heroic Chris Smalls really was. They leaked a memo in the internal upper management of that Amazon where they insulted his intelligence. They minimized him in ways which were they're like racial dog whistling type of nonsense type stuff. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to be even bolder. I'm going to go even harder. Him and his friends organized mutual aid for their Amazon colleagues who couldn't afford to eat while they're working these long, physically strenuous days. They were advocating for COVID protection. They just didn't give up until finally these little events, people started to be like, wait a minute, we're all getting mistreated. This guy's telling the truth. And then they won. And now you have the New York Times wanting to talk to them on the daily, which no shade at the New York Times. It was a good episode. You should listen to it. But we don't start with the mainstream media listening to the people they need to listen to, right?
Yeah.
That happens when we don't give up, when we listen to the heroes we have already, because that's a thing, right? Like we don't need people with like PhDs or like some shiny career. We need the workers who already know how to organize for their communities, who already know what's going on. Like we just need to listen to them and give them the platform they deserve.
You know what? I do know how to raise money. Why we need people to go and join right now. I am so excited about this partnership with ActTV because you're right, Jocelyn. Like it is the fact that it was a small independent media outlets that covered this, that gave it and helped sustain it. Like we shared the links. I'm so glad to see Christian Smalls with the interviews on CNN and on MSNBC and with the New York Times and all those things. But I'm really glad, Sabrina, to know that, he started off and they started off with streaming with ActTV and doing several interviews with us. Like I'm ecstatic about the fact that it was independent media that helped give the coverage that nobody else would. And for that reason, I think there should be several millionaires lining up right now. Talk to us.
Absolutely. It's easy to get discouraged in this fight. You're fighting for, it's like we're fighting a battle on every single front, whether it's affordable childcare, good schools, good roads, for us to have livable wages, for us to unionize, for safe conditions. I mean, just on and on and on. But the point is, let's take our wins and celebrate them and cherish them where we can, and it doesn't take a lot. I just want to keep making that point. Look at, I don't see 100 people behind him. I see a few dedicated people who are committed to a fight to make sure workers had safe conditions, livable wages. All he wanted to do was start a union. And I just want, if you ever think like, well, what is he fighting for? I mean, come on, he could just go get a new job, make $2 more at the place down the street. You know what? If that was so easy, Amazon and other corporations wouldn't be so threatened. If you want to know where you should be fighting, just figure out where are they trying to crush us at every turn, right? They're trying to crush independent media. They're trying to crush unions. They're trying to crush our right to vote, crush livable wages so that they control us, so that we can't collectively come together with our money and make sure that our politicians are doing what we, the people, the 99% want them to do. And so when you donate, when you become a member and you donate to ActTV, your money ain't going to buy yachts and private jets and, send my kids to Harvard. That's not where it's going. It's going to send, Washington correspondents like Jocelyn down to, the Capitol to celebrate the nomination of the first Black, Supreme Court justice. It's going to send our camera people in New York, or sometimes they're coming from DC, to actions like Chris Smalls had in Staten Island last year to cover this when mainstream media won't. It's to send our camera folks to Chicago to support, SEIU and Union Rally, to support airport workers a few weeks ago, that to support shows like the Benjamin Dixon Show, that, the Pursuit of Happiness with Jocelyn, Macurdy, Keatts. Your money goes to support you. It's going to support causes that you support, things that will make your life better. Livable wages, good schools, economic security. It's stuff we have to fight for, but at the end of the day, we do need money to do it. Sign up to be an ActTV member today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, there's a lot more for us to talk about on this Action Monday. We'll be coming back right after this break to follow up on a couple of more stories as well as actions. And that's the part. It is the action. I could tell you as much as I was a hermit during the pandemic, and quite honestly still am, getting out into the streets and actually participating in some of these actions and organizing and seeing real people do real things. That's what this is all about. So go to act.tv/join and become a member today. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined again by Jocelyn Macurdy Keatts and Sabrina Williams of ActTV for this Action Monday. More on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show right after this.
Join our membership program, sign up, find out what's going on, become a patron, and support our work. We're doing these amazing virtual live streams covering events, marches, protests, and actions that mainstream media just isn't covering.
A lot of these very common sense policy interventions aren't given the space they need.
You know, the truth is, before we have the political revolution, we need a media revolution.
We really see this opening in the media space, with television transitioning to the internet in particular. Streaming platforms, Netflix, Hulu, etc., are the next frontier.
And we're not mainstream media. You're not getting a 10-second clip and a very watered down, whitewashed version of what's going on.
Having a media company to support these kind of movement efforts is extremely valuable.
People want to talk to us because they know that we're talking to the people.
We need a dedicated, empowered, honorable base of people who are willing to fight for what they believe in.
This needs to be all of us, not just like watching great content, not just sharing great content, but taking the correlated action and making sure that together these movements are more effective across the board.
We are amplifying activist messages, activist movements, activist campaigns, activist call to action. There's no more important work to be done in this country right now, and ACT.tv is doing it, and we need you to be a member. Go to act.tv and sign up to be a member today.
Back to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. It is Monday, April 18th, 2022. It is an Action Monday, and we are joined, as always, by our partners at ACT.tv, Sabrina Williams, the Chief Operating Officer, and Jocelyn Macurdy Keatts, the DC correspondent. Good morning again to you both.
Good morning.
I want to shift gears and talk about the petition drives. I have had the opportunity, Jocelyn, to work with you on some of the email components of the petition drives, and I'm loving the action part of it, like literally getting in the faces of, we'll get there eventually. But talk to us about the various petition drives and how that is actually driving action.
Well, I love every minute of this segment. This is my favorite part because I think a lot of, I touched on this earlier, there's a lot of cynicism around things like petition, talking to members. And I obviously hear that. I get it. Like, how could you not be cynical? Look around you. But the reality is sometimes we win. Ben, like you and I worked together on writing about the MORE Act, the bill introduced in the House to legalize cannabis use across America, which would do incredible amounts to protect all kinds of communities from the way cannabis has been weaponized to hurt people in this country. Like, yes, communities of color, but also just like, sick people that need marijuana for pain relief. Like there's so many people who are impacted that, and we won. The House did in fact vote on the MORE Act. And so now we're taking it to the Senate, and it's just like a beautiful example of the fact that, yes, a lot of the times we lose because we are up against billions of dollars and incredibly cruel, powerful people, but sometimes we win because at the end of the day, there are millions of us and a few of them. And that's why it's, again, so powerful to be able to have this space of media that is not pretending to be some think tank where we discuss the issues, but is an active, living space where we talk to the people that are doing this work and then we help them do it.
Yeah, no, that's the part, right? We get the opportunity to actually speak to individuals, Sabrina, that are doing this work and the passion that drives it. I mean, this is a labor of love. I mean, each and every part that we're talking about that ActTV is making possible, each of them requires logistics. Each of these things requires technology, requires databases, it requires communication skills, it requires the entire gambit. Talk to us about ActTV's infrastructure and how they're making these petition drives, taking them from conception to reality into victory.
Yeah. And before I talk about, the logistics of how we put our petitions together, I just want to say one thing. Again, I want to touch on all the amazing stuff that Jocelyn says. She's so intelligent. Let's not get cynical. Let's not get frustrated. Yeah. That is what the powers that be want us to feel. It's almost like, I don't know if you all know anything about the psychology of like competition sports, right? Before you can go out there and you can beat your opponent, but if you psychologically, before the game even starts, if you make them think they're going to lose, they're lesser than, they don't have the skills, the tools, the resources to win, you've won before the game has even started. And that's what the power elite want us to feel, that, oh, we don't have the money, we don't have the politics, but you know what we have? We have each other. And when we work together, we do have the money, we do have the resources. I've seen research, and don't quote me on this, but you can Google it. For every one signature on a petition, most politicians or companies feel that's really a reflection of anywhere from like 10,000 to 100,000 other individuals who feel the exact same way, but they were just too busy, they couldn't sign, or they didn't know about the petition, and that's okay. But your voice is really a representation of thousands and thousands of other people. So when you sign these petitions, it really does have impact. And Jocelyn, I'd love for you to just say, so very quickly about our process, Jocelyn, with the help of other people on our team, writes these amazing petitions to, the powers that be, to Congress, elected officials, to organization heads, Fox News, et cetera. We ask folks to sign them. Our intent is always to deliver them and to make sure that, the powers that be know what the American people want. But Jocelyn, I'd love to hear the win. What happened with the MORE Act?
Yeah. So we actually had, it worked. It that never happens. Sometimes it just feels like you're researching, finding all this research about how this issue impacts everyone. And then you write it. And sometimes it can feel, of course, I get why people feel like they sign their name and nothing happens. I didn't know that, Sabrina. That's an amazing statistic about one signature makes perfect sense to me, right? Because people are busy. The American public is working harder than ever. There are studies that working moms now do as much work in the house as stay-home moms a couple generations ago. So people are busy. I get it. But that's why I love petitions, right? Because you add your name and then we will take the onus of making sure it gets in front of the right people. Because I get why people are cynical about digital activism and you're just clicking stuff, you're just sharing stuff. That's where people are now, though. People are on the internet, including our leaders, including our members of Congress, definitely your colleagues. And so, it's an amazing feeling to be like, okay, we worked with, Justin Strickle, who's and all these other activists that are doing this work. And now we're going to the Senate because the activists who did the daily thankless work of educating people and organizing their people are winning. And now we're seeing on cannabis justice advances we never thought were going to happen within our lifetime. I remember not that long ago when it was just understood that any whiff of marijuana use or whatever and your life was ruined, especially if you were a person of color. And now it's becoming normalized. It's becoming legal. And we have this amazing lawyers like yourself, Sabrina, on the case of getting people who shouldn't be behind bars out for nonviolent offenses. That is work that y'all did, that normal people did, that consultants did not do, and it's just so inspiring to be a part of it, because when you win, you realize, oh, we can win on other things too. It's not
That's
just
right.
this one issue.
Speaking of the other wins, and perhaps people should think about it. Well, I'll take a step back too, Sabrina, here, because I do understand people being fatigued over petitions. And I have personally seen petitions be used as just a marketing ploy. But I've not seen that at all with ACT.tv. I've seen petitions be taken into action to move policy. And I think people need to make a really clear distinction. If the petitions that are coming your way aren't moving policy, then they're not quality petitions like we have over here at ACT.tv. Now, speaking of the other issues, Jocelyn, tell us about the Stop War Profiteering, because the way I see it is every time I sign my name to a petition, that gives me an opportunity to not only understand the issue, but to say that I'm personally doing something about it, even if all I personally have the time to do is to sign on to say to stop war profiteering.
Yeah, so this is a huge one. And, by the way, Ben, I love that you say that. Yes, that's true. People do use petitions to get names and make money. And so I just want anyone watching to know that, like, we have a lot of anxiety of making sure, like, if you give us your name, that we're doing something with this. Like, I live in DC. Are we taking this to the hill? Because if we're not, we don't want to waste y'all's time. And one of those very important issues, 108 members of Congress are invested in defense contractors. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, think about that. They are making money off of our defense budget, which, by the way, is the biggest in the world. Killing people abroad, especially people in non-white countries, is a business, and that should disgust all of us. I mean, that literally fits the definition of genocide. And it's wild that we will go into public schools and have like fourth graders educated about the Holocaust. Meanwhile, our taxpayer dollars are being used to kill civilians overseas for no reason, for literally no reason. People who have not taken aggressive stances against this country. And we're saying, you know what, maybe if you're going to elect or represent the American public, you shouldn't be making money off of making them complicit in murder. That's a pretty bare minimum entry bar.
Yeah.
Another thing we should be outraged about on tax day, how our freaking tax dollars are used. I mean, not only are we paying taxes, but a large percentage of our tax dollars go to support things that, like Jocelyn just said, are reprehensible. The killing of, the business of killing brown people in brown countries, make for no reason, for oil, for market domination, for whatever crazy, dumb reason, the powers that be in this country and around the world have, it makes no sense. These lives are valuable, and there's no reason our tax dollars should be supporting it.
It is a bit triggering when I consider the size of a check that I send to the IRS every month, to know that those dollars are now not only going directly to pay for these politicians' salaries, right? Because we pay their salaries, but for 108 of them, they're getting this money indirectly through defense profiteering, because they're investing in these defense contractors. I find that really reprehensible. You're right, Sabrina. On a day like today, when everyone is going to be writing checks to the government, they're going to get a bonus. These 108 politicians are going to get a bonus out of our tax dollars, and it's in the name of war. It can't possibly be more disgusting. What are we going to do with these names, Jocelyn? I'm ready to get my camera and pull up with you, because we need to talk to some of these politicians.
I would love that. And that is what we want to do, right? And so, this is something that, like, we do multiple times a week. Okay, so, like, we're launching these petitions. Let's have a conversation about turning this into action. Does this mean that, me and other members of our DC team are going to go to Capitol Hill? Does this mean we're going to, go to constituents and get more names? Because organizing still works. In fact, if you are a student of history right now and a student of current events, it works more than ever. Another petition we're working on, cancel student debt, yet another issue that we never thought would be getting so close to victory. because of people like you who shared your stories, who organized, who took it seriously. And, like, again, this didn't happen overnight. People love magical thinking. They love that we woke up one day and all of a sudden people are talking about Medicare for all. It's like, no, that happened because a lot of activists who are mostly normal, ordinary people did work like this. And now it's something that's seriously on the table.
Let's shift gears. Another petition is the cancel student debt petition. I think anyone who, I think everyone should be on board with this one, but specifically because of how student debt has become another tool of fleecing the American citizen. Let's talk about that particular petition.
Yeah, so Sabrina, actually, the stuff you were telling me the last time we hung out about the wage gap and student debt blew my mind. Do you remember that conversation? She was, so Sabrina, we were talking about how, like, a lot of times we think of secondary degrees in this country as, oh, well, why did you get that master's degree if you couldn't afford it? Here's the deal. They've created a situation where professional wages, and I'm not talking like a ton of money, just basic living wages, are behind the wall of a higher degree, which they make prohibitively expensive. And that hurts people who can't afford it. That hurts people whose parents can't afford it. It hurts people who are alienated from their parents. Like, let's talk about that, right? The aid you qualify is based on your parents' income. Well, like, what if you don't get along with your parents like that? So what are you supposed to do, And it has resulted in a situation where lots of people against canceling student debt are saying foolish things like, well, those are all doctors and lawyers who can afford it. Why am I subsidizing? But the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. The average person who is deeply in debt is not a high earning private practice physician. It's Black women who are also more likely to be supporting their families. It's people who maybe didn't even finish college, but still have to pay back that tens of thousands of debt and aren't even making a living wage. And we need to, one, have a serious conversation about why people need these expensive degrees to make a living wage to begin with. But first, we need to cancel it. Just cancel it. And President Biden has the power to do that now, which he's just kind of like not wanting to talk about it. It's much easier to punt to Congress and be like, oh, they just don't want to do anything. I'm so sorry. But we know that's ridiculous. He can sign executive disorder. That's an amazing Freudian slip.
Wow. What a turn of phrase. We'll have to credit you when I use it again. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say. But he can do it because you keep moving that goalpost back of people not needing to repay their loans. It's like, and I don't even like their loans because that puts the onus on students who were just doing everything right. For decades, we've been telling people, especially people in marginalized communities, like, oh, well, you've got to educate yourself. That's on you. And then people do that. They do that incredibly hard work of getting sophisticated degrees. And then what are they rewarded with? Debt they will never pay off.
Absolutely. Sabrina, tell us about this event, because I know you guys covered this calling for and actually President Biden extending the repayments during COVID-19. Talk to us about this event.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm definitely with Jocelyn that Biden and our elected officials, Congress, can do more to cancel student debt. I mean, we're asking them for one thing, cancel student debt. I mean, that's a pretty simple call to action for them. We partnered with Voto Latino a few weeks ago, and I know we have some B-roll of that going. And, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was on. And they were talking about canceling student debt, specifically canceling student debt and the benefits it would mean for the Latino community in our country. But, their head, Maria Teresa Kumar, definitely talked about the impact to all communities of color and just everyone of canceling student debt. We had a petition, people signed, and we did get a little win. I like to take our wins where we can. Let's have a little bit of happiness before we get back in the fight. Biden did extend the debt, waiver or cancellation, not cancellation, but, we don't have to pay our student loan debt until I believe it's August. It will, that executive order or whatever it was, does expire in August. We're asking him to make it permanent. Let's cancel student debt permanently. But I do want to take that win right there. I do think, again, ActTV covered an issue you're rarely hearing about on the nightly news. And if you are hearing about it, you're hearing a 10-minute soundbite. You are not hearing the full in-depth conversation like we had with Voto Latino and other partners several weeks ago. It's not just ActTV. So again, we can't do it alone. We partner with tons of movement organizations, tons of activists, tons of people, just like the folks watching and listening right now, because it takes all of us. We demanded a cancellation of student debt, and we got a little win out of it. We got, an extension of, no debt payments until August. I will take that little win. Let's celebrate, but then let's get right back to work demanding that Biden and Congress cancel student debt forever. And as Jocelyn said, use your executive disorder, your order, whatever you do, but let's cancel student debt so that we can give some economic relief to everyone in this country, but particularly the brown and Black people who suffer under crushing student loan debt the most. As Jocelyn said, Black women are the most educated demographic in this country, yet we make 60-something cents to a white man's dollar. Student loan impacts us disproportionately, and President Biden has the authority and the power to change that. Sign that petition. And let him and elected officials know how you feel about it. You can go to act.tv/action, sign all of our petitions. They do make a difference. They do.
Absolutely. They make a difference. And, I think people should also consider how much it makes a difference for them as individuals to have this information synthesized into one place where they could go and get detailed information about not only the issue, but about what's happening in Congress. I'm at the juncture where, just a brief moment for commentary, considering how important education is to any government, any institution, any civilization, right? It is a direct investment into the United States of America for these students to have gotten this education. And so it is also a direct investment doubly over for Joe Biden to cancel this student debt, because we're talking about $4 trillion in debt that would be now released into the economy because people will be able to buy homes. People will be able to afford their car payments. People will be able to live. But it just seems to me like they have this perfect catch-22 where they can keep education from us. And if we happen to get it, it costs us a lifetime of debt. And then we're too busy, Jocelyn, to even understand some of these issues. But then comes ActTV, and ActTV says, here, we're going to outline every single one of these issues, and all you have to do is read it and sign it, and you could be not only informed, but you could be active. I absolutely love what's going on over there at ActTV. I want both of you, if you would, I want to make sure we cover everything, because I know there's some more actions. We have CBS petition, CBS trying to offer jobs to former Trump staffers, and they can find all of these at ActTV/action. Is that correct, Jocelyn?
Yes, absolutely.
Actions. Okay, so let's do this. Sabrina, as we get ready to go this morning, I think we have made the most convincing case of why, at a minimum, you should become a member. It's free to join. Give us the closing pitch as to why everyone should stop what they're doing. And I don't want to sound dramatic, but as I listen to this, I'm going to be honest with you. As I listen to this episode this morning in particular, my energy is renewed to get to work and to do more than watch and act. Sabrina, get the last word.
Listen, when we come together, I know I sound like Bernie Sanders, but when we come together, me, you, Jocelyn, all of the people watching, we can make change. We've just showed you together we can make change. But we have to support independent progressive media, because no one else is going to be at these teeny tiny actions, writing these petitions like Jocelyn does about canceling student debt and not giving, cushy jobs to, Trump's chief of staff and other people in his administration. Stop the war profiteering. That's not what you're going to hear on the nightly news. So if you don't have time to research all these issues, read our petitions, trust us, follow us. We have not let you down. We have helped support with our partners. We have helped support and gain wins. Join ActTV, join our membership program. It costs you nothing. You will get our updates. You will be put on our email list. We will not spam you. I promise you. And if you have a little bit of extra money, it doesn't take much to support us. Become a patron, give a recurring gift of 10 or 20 or $100 a month if you can. Your money goes 100% to supporting the work that ACT.tv does, the work that makes your life better, the work that makes America a better place for everyone, Join today, act.tv/join.
Jocelyn McCurdy Keatts, Sabrina Williams, and the entire ACT.tv team, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Ben.
We have the best of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show coming up next. Stay tuned around. The entire team will be back tomorrow. The Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. We'll see you next time.